Good morning. Welcome to our webinar on Webforms inside Zoho CRM. Thank you for joining us. This is Kripa, product marketer for Zoho CRM, and I'll be your host today. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Let me know in the comments box, please. Okay, thank you for your responses. Alright, before we begin this webinar, let me highlight a few things. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to type them in the comment box. I have a couple of support colleagues here with me, and they will provide chat support and answer your questions as we go along this presentation. Just in case they are busy answering other questions, we have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this webinar. I'm also recording this presentation and I'll be sending out an email with the link of the recorded version. Let me also introduce my colleague Samir here. He's our senior sales engineer from our Austin, Texas office. He'll be handling the product demo. This is the agenda for today's webinar. We'll go over a little bit of overview of how exactly webforms work and the different types of webforms we have available inside Zoho CRM. Then we'll go into a demo where we actually create a webform. We'll cover some best practices, things to keep in mind when you create a webform, and some good ideas to help optimize them. I'll wrap things up at the end with some time for Q&A. Alright, just a little bit of overview. I know for some people, the idea of creating a web form, generating a code, embedding something, or doing anything you have to involve your website can be a little scary. It is definitely a lot simpler than it sounds. This is just to give you a basic idea of how web forms work. You create a form, it goes up on your site, you choose the fields you want to capture, so customers come in, they enter their information. As soon as they hit get started, it automatically comes into your CRM account. How you handle from there is entirely up to you. It can be a simple workflow or a complex one as you prefer. You can set up email campaigns, assign tasks for somebody to call them inside CRM. We have a few different types of form you can create inside our CRM. Most popular one is going to be our web-to-lead form. These are going to be the tools that drive your inbound marketing. Like I mentioned in my previous slide, you sign up, all the information comes inside your CRM, and you can follow up with them from there. Web-to-contacts form work very similarly to web-to-lead forms. This is useful for people who mainly use the contacts module and don't really use the leads module inside CRM. You can set up a web-to-contact form. They'll just come directly to your contacts module. It can also work for a few other things. If you're not necessarily looking to engage your customers in a sales process right away, but you want to capture their information for a mailing list or a newsletter, or have them sign up for an exclusive event that you're hosting, this is great for that. Then we finally come into web-to-case forms. Web-to-case forms don't get a lot of attention inside our CRM. Though not everybody really needs a complex support solution like Zoho Desk, everybody do need to find a way to offer support to their customers. Or at least give customers the way to say, hey, something's wrong, or I really had this bad experience. So web-to-case forms are great for that. They come into your website, they enter the issue that happened, and it automatically creates a record inside your CRM, which you can follow up on and then mark them as complete once it's all been resolved. So, how to set up web forms in Zoho CRM? This is where we are going to go into a demo, and Samir here is going to show you all of the steps. Over to you, Samir.
Alright guys, so we're going to start by going into a quick demo of building out a web form. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is hit the wrench icon at the top right and hit setup. Now from the setup page, you're going to want to go into the automation menu, and under automation, click web forms. And now from here, you can start creating different web forms for each one of the modules. You'll see here that you can start creating web forms from leads and contacts and also cases, and then any other custom modules that you've created. So for this example, we're going to create a web form for contacts. So I'm going to click the create web form button. And as you can see here, it'll start populating any of the required fields that are in your contact form. So for me, I've already created the last name field, or I already have it as a required field. Now from here, I'll pull in a few other details that I want them to fill out. So I'll bring in first name, email address, and I also created a custom field called interested in. And so as you can see, you can even bring in your custom fields that you've created in your contact form as well. Now what's also going to be important for me is to indicate where this lead might have come from. So I'll put in lead source, but what I'm going to do is mark it as a hidden field so that they don't necessarily have to fill it out, but I can indicate to myself that they came from this inquiry form. So I'm going to select that as my default value. So there's going to be a huge list of information that they can go ahead and fill in using the fields here. We also have some advanced tools. So we're going to use the CAPTCHA as well so that they can make sure that they'll fill in the correct form and it gets populated as a correct contact in the system. Now from here, you'll have some more advanced options as well, so you can change the font that's added for the web form, the size of it, so if I wanted to make it a little bit larger, and also the color scheme behind it. So you have a lot of different options as far as customizing the form as well. Now once I go ahead and finish up here, I'm going to add in one more detail just for the description. And I'll hit next. Now from here, it's going to ask me for some preliminary information about the form. So what I'm going to do is just call this new inquiry form. And then it's going to ask you for where the exact website is for the form. I'm going to put in the website of where it's going to be located. And that's zilker.com/contact.html. And then also, when the contact actually fills out the form, you'll want to reroute them to a specific landing page. So we'll put in one here as well. Okay. Now, you'll have some more advanced options for when the contact actually fills out the form. So from here, I can go ahead and assign it to a specific user in my CRM to get that new contact whenever they show up in the CRM. Or I can choose an assignment rule, which means that I can automate the process of who gets the actual contact whenever they sign up and fill out the form. So from here, I can go into my assignment rules and set up a scenario that says if the contact is interested in interiors for a household, or if it's for an office, then based on those selections, I can automate who actually receives that contact. So we'll just keep it simple now, and I'll just assign it to Chris here. Now I can also notify that user that they received that new contact. So I can either get a system-generated email from Zoho that just gives a quick notification, or I can build my own template. And what that'll allow you to do is build your own custom template of what information that you want Chris or whoever is a user in your CRM to receive information about that contact. So you can build your own template out and merge any information from the contact form into this email. What's also really important is acknowledging that contact once they filled out that form. So what you can do is choose a default response, so everyone who gets or who fills it out will receive the same response that says, hey, thanks for contacting us, we'll be reaching out to you shortly. Or you can also choose, based on the same type of criteria, what type of email that they'd receive. So if it's a household, you might have a household specific email, or if it's an office, a more specific email for offices or businesses. So you can basically create a new rule that triggers the type of email template that gets sent out using the information that's brought in from the contact. Okay, and so you can make those auto response rules as you formulate the web form. Now we also have a more advanced feature called visitor tracking. This is powered by one of our other applications called Zoho Sales IQ. And so essentially from here, you can choose a portal of Zoho Sales IQ and it'll start tracking the information of where they might have spent some time on your website. So how many pages that they visit, how much time that they spent on each page, and things of that nature. Now, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to zoho.com/salesiq to learn more information about how those two talk to each other and how you can use it to revamp your website. Now, the last type of advanced rule that we have is requesting for approvals. Now, there might be an instance where some of these people who fill out the contact page might not provide enough information, or you need to have someone look over it before it gets to an actual individual. So what this will do will lock down the actual contact until someone like a manager or an administrator looks over the contact and approves of it before it moves on to the next step of someone following up with them. Now, you can also have those rejections as well. So maybe it's not a legitimate contact or they did not provide enough information, then those can be rejected as well whenever it's necessary. So whenever I enable or disable these different details for the form, and I'm going to re-enable these real quick. So I can go ahead and hit save. And what it'll allow me to do now is it generates the source code for me to go ahead and bring this onto my website. So I'm going to copy this format here and hit done. Now I'm going to move over to my website here. So this is what our Zilker page looks like. It has a few different pages available for me and also a contact tab so someone can fill it out. Right now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and paste that information for the form onto my website. So I'm going to go over to contact here. And then from here, I can choose the embed option in Zoho Sites to go ahead and bring that information in and paste that source code. This pretty much works the same way on your website builder as well. All you need to do is just copy the source code from the CRM and paste it in the right place for where you want it on your web page. Now I'm going to publish this. And now if I go to zilker.com and go to my contact page, that form is listed right here. So all the different fields that I went ahead and pulled in, first and last name, even that custom field that I created, are all going to be available for me for my contacts to fill out. So let's go ahead and try to fill in one person here. So I'll put in Mark Cuban, and I'll just pull in some information here. And I'll say it's for a residence. And enter this information. Now when I hit submit, it automatically takes me to my landing page that I created for this form. So as you can see here, it says, "Thank you for contacting us. We'll get back to you shortly." And go back to my CRM. I'm going to go ahead and go to the contacts page. And as soon as that happens, Mark is that first contact that's in my CRM account. So now if I click on him, I'll be able to see that information that gets translated into the system. So that residential selection is automatically there in real time. So as soon as new contacts are created or filled out, when they fill out the form, they'll be automatically listed as new contacts inside Zoho. Now also, when you're creating these different web forms inside the CRM, and you're on the Enterprise edition of Zoho CRM, you'll also be able to choose the type of layout that you have set up for the different contacts or leads that you have. So if you have different custom fields or different variations of leads or contacts, you can always choose the layout of where it gets sent over, and then the web forms can be built accordingly. Now, if you have an existing form set up with your website, you can also integrate your existing web form with the CRM using our open APIs. We recommend using the CRM Webforms actually just because the APIs might drop off some information. So we highly recommend using the CRM Webforms to build forms that directly speak to the CRM and bring in the right contact information at the right time. Now, one of the last options that you have within the web form section is an unsubscription form. So whenever you have contacts that are beginning to be generated into the system and you start sending out emails for them, you can also provide an unsubscription form. So when they opt out of emails, that information will get updated into their contact form as well. So you'll be able to know if they want or do not want to receive emails when you see this email opt-out field. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Samir. While you're building a web forms, here are a few things to keep in mind. For your customers, make sure to provide links and hints to the field that you think might be a problem area. Some people might be reluctant to give their email address. You can have a link to your security or privacy policy, just so it kind of helps them feel a little bit more secure. Try to avoid ambiguous spacing and have the labels close to the fields that they describe. Keep your form as short as possible. You don't want to have too many fields in there, especially mandatory fields. Then it is less likely that the respondents will hit the submit button and they'll really move on to the next page. Distinguish optional and required fields. Limit the form to only 1 or 2 optional fields and clearly label them as optional. So just like we were talking about, if you have a success page setup, customers can see their submission go through, especially if you have more content in there to further engage them instead of just going to your home page and leaving from there. Send personalized emails. You can set up a generic response that goes out, but you can also make a really detailed information your customers want to know and help them further move along the sales process. For your database, make sure you connect the form to Zoho CRM. You can get the email information you want to, and you will be able to further follow up with them from there. Assign records automatically to your sales reps. You can do this based on location, industry, different level of products. It takes out the manual work for you. Pass the information via hidden fields. So like we talked about in our demo, you don't want your customers to be able to see that they came from a trade show or a conference or anything like that, but you want to know where they came from. So just pass the information through a hidden field. That way they don't see it and it automatically assigns the right lead source. Some spam control tips. Approve those leads before adding them into the CRM. That way you don't get a lot of junk leads. Use HTTPS instead of HTTP, just so it's more secure and cannot be intercepted. Use CAPTCHA. This is the field where they enter a generated code before they hit submit. That way they know that it's a little bit more secure. We are nearing the end of our webinar. Here's some contact information. We encourage you to send an email to our support team if you need any help with the setup. Go to zoho.com/crm/help to check our help modules on our website. If you want details of our upcoming webinars, you can go to zoho.com/crm/webinars and register for the ones you're interested in. Last thing we want you to do is, if you do have any feedback or comments about this webinar, you can tweet us at our Twitter handle @Zoho CRM. We recommend you to join us this Thursday at the same time for our next webinar on return on investment from Google AdWords and how it impacts your sales process. This webinar will help you get a complete picture of how much revenue your online ad campaigns are actually generating. You'll get to learn how to sync your Google AdWords account with Zoho CRM and track deals. Please go to zoho.to/WSMZ to register for it. This brings us to the end of this webinar. We will open it up for Q&A. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach us out on this comment box. We'll be more than happy to help. We will wait for another 5 to 10 minutes to answer your questions. I'd like to thank you again for your time. Have a great day.